morning. Very nice to see you all again. Now we're going to do something extremely fun.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
I think I'm having what the Germans call a Schadengasm. Where do they teach you to talk like this? In some Panama City sailor want a hump bar? Or is this getaway day and your last shot at his whiskey? Sell crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Hey everybody, welcome! Thanks for joining me again today on this fine Sunday. We are going to draw caricatures of female subjects today exclusively. If you're anything like me, you maybe find that you have a lack of female representation in your artist portfolios when it comes to caricature. It's something I've known about for a long time, that I felt like, I need to draw more women. I think a lot of us, maybe just because we're, if you're a male artist, maybe shy away from drawing women when you have a choice of who to draw, because male subjects tend to have more interesting faces, or subjects that have more character. We're going to talk about some of those reasons and the psychology that goes into it, and what you can do to overcome some of those roadblocks, and just to be aware of those issues so that you can look past them to get to a point where you can feel more comfortable caricaturing women. Let's take a quick look at the chat, see who's in here today. We got Sargon and Antonio, Subode. Hello, Shiny, haven't seen you in a while. Patrick, hey. Butch, nice to see you. Jack. All right. Let's see. You know what? Of course, the chat is not working again. Oh, no, there it is. Hey, it showed up. Perfect. May take a second to fill up the space there, but okay. So anyway, let's see, where were we? Let me close this thing down here. Okay. So, I've got a few women to draw today, but first I wanted to talk about the issues that go into it, that we sometimes struggle with. I think the first thing to be aware of when talking about caricaturing women, there's two types of jobs you're going to get in caricature. It's drawing celebrities for editorial purposes, for magazines, books, or whatever. And then there's client work. There's like commissions, private commissions. And they have different psychologies behind them and different issues. Whenever I'm drawing a client, a gift caricature for someone, maybe it's the person I'm drawing, that's commissioning me, or maybe it's a gift for them. There is this internal pressure I put on myself. Maybe I pick up on it from the client. Maybe it's something they said where you can tell that they don't want it to be that funny, that they want it to be pretty or whatever. And that can come from male clients too. They can definitely have vain male clients, just like you can have vain female clients that don't really want caricature, even though they say they do. I recently did a caricature commission for someone. It was a digital painting, and it was actually fairly funny. It was a pretty funny exaggeration that I was proud of. She had sort of a Drew Barrymore sort of look to her face, sort of a strong jawline and a chin. And I showed her the sketch, and she approved it. But then when she saw the final painting, she said, "You know what? Can you make my jawline more feminine?" were the exact words. And I was like, "Yeah, sure. And I don't mind. Honestly, when it's a client who's paying me their own hard-earned money, I want to satisfy them and please them. I want to make sure they're happy because I'm providing a service." And I used to get all bent out of shape about it. I'd get all huffy like, "Well, it's my art. It's my exaggeration. If you didn't want it, to be drawn my way, you shouldn't have come to me." And there could be a certain amount of truth to that, and you'll have to decide as an artist if you really care about that or not, or if you care more about getting repeat clients. So I opt to just follow whatever the client wants in that situation, because again, I'm in the people-pleasing business. Personally, I don't think it's as good as a caricature anymore, and I don't think the face is as funny, and I probably wouldn't put it in my portfolio just because it doesn't represent the original exaggeration that I intended. I got paid for it, the client was happy, that's fine by me. But yeah, it probably won't go in my portfolio. Hey Alan, good to see you. So then there's, aside from the client, wanting to look good in their own picture, it's the celebrity caricatures that you might draw. And you might get some pushback from an art director or the job that you're working on, where they don't maybe want the person to be drawn super funny. But that's not usually the case. They usually don't have a stake in it. They usually don't care. If I've done like actresses for like the Oscars that I did for this local newspaper a few years ago, they don't care how I draw the people. As long as it looks like them and if it's funny, all the better. So I always had freedom on, you usually have more freedom on jobs where it's illustrations of other people. If you're drawing people that aren't the actual subjects. I'm sorry, if the client isn't the subject, you know what I mean. But anyway, so talking about celebrities though, the thing that tends to happen with, I think, a lot of female celebrities is the ones that get most popular, that get cast in the movies, that get to the front and center of our pop culture, tend to have very similar looks because of the system, because that's what the industry demands. The person that's going to get the role in the movie, unfortunately, has to conform to certain visions, maybe the director or the people in charge, the casting, the producers, whatever. They want people to fill up the theater seats, and they think a certain attractive type is going to fill up theater seats. And so you see a lot of female celebrities who fit within a very narrow range. And this is a real thing, I think. That's why it's often harder to draw female subjects that are famous celebrities, because a lot of them do look very similar to one another because of the standards that the industry imposes on that profession. And, it's getting better. I think there's a wider range of people becoming famous, and women actresses that are standing out more for their performances, which is awesome. But it still goes on. So that may be a genuine problem you run into when drawing female celebrities, is that they do tend to look alike because of those outside circumstances. So just be aware of that. You just have to work harder when drawing them. Basically, the solution to it is just you have to dig deeper. You have to get multiple photos of the subject, which brings me into my next point about women's faces is women in our culture in America tend to have a variety of hairstyles and makeup styles from movie to movie when they're on the red carpet versus when they're not, So that will actually help. That will make their own faces look different from each other, from themselves, from one picture to another. Like if you see the actress Mila Kunis without makeup versus with makeup, she looks like a completely different person. And if you've ever seen like Zooey Deschanel without bangs, if they're pulled back, completely different person, unrecognizable. The hair especially can go a long way to changing the head shape. So it's very confusing for the artist who's trying to figure out what that actress's head shape is, because hair coming down in front of the face kind of blocks out the wide cheeks maybe. Your best bet is to probably try to find photos with the actresses with their hair pulled back in a bun, and maybe use that as your base reference for their head shape. And I have some that I can show you later that I'm going to be drawing from. There is also just a physiological thing with like young women in particular. They do tend to have smoother faces. Just biologically, women have a little bit more body fat than men, and so the differences, or the facial planes, will be a little bit more softened on their faces. So there's definitely not as much to latch onto. That's just something I've noticed when I'm trying to draw a female subject. Drawing Natalie Portman isn't necessarily as, there's not going to be as many facial planes as when you're drawing someone like, I don't know, Pierce Brosnan. I'm just pulling names out of a hat here. An older male with a lot of wrinkles and bones and fat deposits. So that's another thing to be aware of, where you might have to, if you want to draw a female with a more of a feminine, young, attractive look, it's going to be a very smoothed out face with not a lot of facial planes. And those I think are pretty much the main issues. Societal pressure. Societal pressure and client pressure to draw the person attractive. So that, actually I want this to be my last point. Getting in your own head. Whenever you psych yourself out for a drawing, it adds an extra layer of difficulty, where if you feel the pressure from the client, the subject, or your art director, or even like just a vague pressure to draw the person attractive, it's going to affect your ability to make free decisions about what to exaggerate. You'll be timid because you will not want to make the person look less attractive, or if you give her a big jawline or a wider face, you're afraid it's not going to look like them because you don't associate them with that. But you just have to look at them as human beings. You just have to look at females the way you look at men and just judge them accurately and mercilessly. Don't play favorites. That's all I got to say about that, really. Just the more you have in your head that will pull you in a different direction about what to do, it fights against your natural instincts and will create a more timid caricature. So we have, looks like, a bunch of comments here. I'm not sure. Maybe Debbie can help me in a minute with reading some of those. I'll just go ahead and switch over to my workspace view here. Alrighty. So, first person I'm going to be drawing today, First Lady Melania Trump. I'm going to be drawing a wide variety of facial types and physical types today, I think, because that's, I think, in all of our benefit. But I've wanted to draw her for a while. I haven't actually done any caricatures of her. Maybe a couple loose sketches, but nothing serious. Let's see. I'm going to draw this. Oh, there we go. That's what I was looking for. So I've got a few views, and this is what I was talking about earlier about getting several different angles and views on the same subject can really help you figure out what to do with their face. Because when you are looking at a subject, say from the front view, like in this photo here, you can't really tell what's going on with her nose. It could be a very bland nose until you look from the side. It's like, oh, she's actually got a very pronounced nose with a large square ball on the end. And so that will inform my decision when I'm drawing her from the front view. Alrighty. And also, try to always look for photos that really look like the person, because there are many photos of women in particular, because like I said, of the hair and the makeup, where they don't look like what you remember them looking like, because it's just a weird angle, weird lighting, hair and makeup can be different. Always try to go with their most iconic looks and expressions and angles that really bring out their features. And that goes for anybody, male or female. But when you're having trouble with the subject of figuring out what to exaggerate, try to get photos that are very consistent looking, where they look just like the person that you remember in your memory. And let's try to resize these all so that I can see them.
That's a good point, though, about the iconic look, because women tend to change their looks. Hi, everybody.
Debbie's here.
The voice.
Hey, where's that other character? Oh, there it is. This is the one I was probably going to draw from. This is my favorite one of her, I think, because it's a slight 3/4 view. and she has a great expression. But I do like the front view as well. I don't know. We'll see. I'll do what I'm going to do here today is a few thumbnail sketches, and if I like it, I'll turn it into a rough sketch. But let me just position this so I can see them all. I'm not going to be using a variety of brushes today. I've got my special Court Jones brush set out, but I'm only going to be using the sketching pencil, which is the first brush on the list here. There's a correcting pencil. Maybe I'll use that if I do a rough sketch. I don't know. But the correcting pencil, as if you saw the stream last week, is a pencil that has a little more smoothing applied to it, so it helps you make a little bit more controlled lines. All right. So any fun questions or anything yet, or comments?
No, people are just talking amongst themselves and
cool.
Making comments about plastic surgery,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
things like that. But I'm sure there'll be questions soon.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. I'm gonna start with this first one here, Mrs. Trump, and I'm gonna go ahead and use a little cheat. I'm gonna show you one of the things I like to do sometimes when I've got a front view face. I'm gonna just turn on the Symmetry drawing tool in Photoshop because it is a front view, and it saves time and it makes sure that my shape design is symmetrical on both sides. Now, her face is a little bit tilted. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to straighten it out for my drawing. But what I see mostly about her is just great big cheekbones, very angular face in general. Some women have more softer features, softer rounded faces, but hers I think is very harsh and angular. But a very minor chin, very small chin, small jawline. And these eyes are crazy. They're almost like, I love this squinty look that she does. They're almost completely closed, so I may just draw them really small and closed. And they're very much informed, I think, by the size, the enormous size of the cheeks, especially in my caricature. It's going to be like the cheek shapes are going to be scrunching the eyes down even more. And her, see her eyebrows, I think, are pretty close to her eyes, so let's make them low and close. Kind of an arcing V shape. They almost look like angry eyebrows. And keeping in mind the profile view of her, she has a fairly strong nose that takes up a good portion of her face with a strong ball on the end. So I think her nose can definitely be a little bigger, but not, huge. She doesn't have a huge nose, but it is definitely not a tiny nose. A little bit larger than average, I would say. Now, when I do my final drawing on top of this, I probably will not use the Symmetry tool just because I don't want the Symmetry to be so overwhelming that it looks like I used that tool. It's just for the initial construction of the drawing. Very, very heavy eye makeup. In fact, maybe even a little thicker. Okay, let's go ahead and turn that Symmetry off now, because I need to design her hair. I think I need to shrink her face down a little bit more so I can fit more of the hair in there. Let me know, guys, of course, if you have any questions about anything related to this or not. Debbie will let me know.
No, I mean, so far no questions. Someone did mention that I sound like David Finch's wife, Meredith. Who is David Finch?
I have no idea. The name sounds familiar, but...
I will have to look that up. Google is my friend. I hope that's a good thing. Carlton, let me know. So, in Photoshop you use the Symmetry tool. I'm trying to remember, Procreate did not have a Symmetry tool for a while. I wonder if they've changed that.
Does anyone know if Procreate has a Symmetry tool for drawing yet?
I can't remember.
I know a lot of people are using Procreate these days. I've played with it, but have not really done much in it, just a few sketches. All right, so as far as the thumbnail sketch, I mean, I don't like to spend more than a few minutes on it. I was getting a little into it here. So I like it. I mean, I think I could actually take this and make it into a little bit more of a refined sketch. So let me go ahead and dim this down a bit so I can draw on top of this layer. And so I'm thinking a little bit more now about the likeness and refining that. If you know my drawing process, my 4-stage drawing process when doing caricatures, the first stage of the thumbnail sketch is just about finding the exaggeration and hoping that you achieve a good likeness. But likeness, I like to look at it as more of as a potential at that stage. It doesn't have to be perfect yet. I just have to look at it and go, yeah, there's a lot of potential for likeness in this one. And then this stage, the rough sketch, is all about bringing out that likeness and refining that even further. And then the stage after this would be the corrections phase, where I would maybe do a tracing or an abstraction of this drawing using the Riley method to help fix and find any asymmetries or unplanned distortions. And then the stage after that would be the final drawing, which would be a much cleaner drawing without really any shading, because I would usually then take that into Photoshop or project it onto a canvas and then paint the shapes and values. But today, like I said, I'm probably just going to go stop at the rough sketch phase for each of these, because I have a few subjects I want to get through. I think it'll be helpful to see a lot of different facial types be drawn today. And I could probably do a little bit more careful drawing of these eyes here. I just was very simplistic in how I handled them in the initial sketch. But I think I would like to see some of her eyes. I mean, the values in the eyes can be really dark. I think that's good. But I think I need to refine the shapes a little more. Like, she has this really pulled upward feeling to her eyes, like these elf eyes, where they're a little higher on the outside than they are on the inside. But very, very heavy eyeliner all the way around. Very squinty.
So Fabio Rodriguez has a good question. How do you do live caricatures without time to make thumbnails? And this is almost kind of like a live caricature in more ways than some of the earlier ones that you've done on your stream.
Yeah. I mean, front views always, I think, conjure up images of quick sketch live caricatures, because that's basically what we do.
But you didn't do any thumbnails for this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did a thumbnail, but I just did one. And I liked it, so I didn't do any other ones. But I considered it a thumbnail drawing just because I was loose and sketchy and trying to draw just quickly. But yeah, when doing live quick sketch, you don't do any pre-drawings or pre-sketches. It's a trick. It's something you practice. There's a formulaic way of drawing faces when drawing quick sketch caricatures live, where you don't feel the pressure, or the need to draw a character. You don't feel the need to do a pre-sketch. Some artists do. There are some artists who actually in a live theme park or fair setting do pre-drawings. And I just think it takes away a little bit of the magic, and also just takes up a lot of extra time. But those kind of artists tend to really, really want to focus on exaggeration and likeness. Whereas I kind of like to look at it as it's a performance. It's performance art. You're there to entertain the people watching, so it's got to be fast and fun. So basically, you just take the concepts that we're thinking about here about exaggeration, and you employ them in a much quicker method with a pen. And you start in the exact same place each time is what usually helps. Like starting with the cheek down to the jaw, down to the chin, back up to the other cheek. Then I've got the whole face drawn in, basically. Then I add the hair. Then I work my way in, and then I have the eyes. That's just one method. There are, other schools of thought that say you should draw with the eyes first and then work your way out. But then those artists are trained to do it that exact same way each time. And it really streamlines the process so that you can draw quickly each time. So you're just doing a 3-minute ink drawing that looks reasonably like the person. We don't ever really guarantee likenesses when drawing live. I mean, there's nothing really in the contract that says we do or don't, but I think most people understand that it's sort of a given that, yeah, it's not maybe going to be the best drawing that you're ever going to get, like the best likeness. I like to think I usually do get a pretty decent likeness, but I definitely don't push the exaggerations too much, because the more you push an exaggeration, the higher risk you have of losing the likeness. And there's some people who definitely are good at that in a live situation about pushing it and still getting a good likeness, but it's a risky game. And I tend to be one of those artists that tends to prefer to just draw for the client, the 10 people per hour that I promise I can draw, in color, or 20 people in black and white per hour, and then I move on and they hire me for their next event. Because it's a form of light entertainment, I think, more than anything else.
So here's a question for you. You wanted a question?
Yeah.
I got a question. Akash Kumar wants to know, what's the difference between concept art, illustration, and caricature? Double-spaced.
Double-spaced?
Yes, your paper on that topic.
I don't understand the double-spaced. Is that something that they said? What?
No, never mind.
Okay.
I mean, it's a very wide topic. You could write a paper on that.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. The difference between, what is it? Concept art?
Concept art, illustration, and caricature.
Well, caricature can be employed in all of those disciplines. Concept art, as I understand it, is basically when you're working for a company who is developing a project, be it a video game or a movie or an animated cartoon, and they need someone to design the look of everything. So you're drawing pretty much not caricatures, unless the subject matter includes caricatures. Like there could be an animated project, like Steve Silver, one of his first jobs was working for Warner Brothers, drawing character designs, which is a form of concept design that used celebrity caricatures. It was something called Hysteria, where he was drawing real historical figures. So they needed a caricature artist to do the character designs for that, to make sure they look like the person, not just a regular character designer who may not necessarily be trained in caricature. But, as a concept designer, you may also be designing environments and spaceships and guns and animals and aliens. It encompasses everything. And you're the inventor. You're the one who's creating the whole visual language from scratch as a concept designer. An illustrator is basically someone who's going to take whatever subject. It could be caricature, it could be sci-fi, fantasy, it could be a range of things, any subject really, and you're illustrating someone else's concept that they have, it is in a sense like concept design, but you're not working on a whole project where you're developing the look of everything in multiple items and characters and scene. You're doing just one image, usually. And I just recently did some sci-fi book covers, and I had to design the look of the alien that I created, so it involved a bit of concept design. But oftentimes illustration can be just something that's real in your environment. Like it's just somebody wants a Christmas card design, so maybe you'll have to find some models to pose for the family and take pictures in the back, in an interior space with a Christmas tree. And so you're not inventing anything, you're not designing anything new, you're just figuring out how to tell a story with a single image. Like what Norman Rockwell did. He painted very real things, but he designed them in a cool, original way. And then caricature is just caricature. You can be a caricature artist who does fine art. You can be a caricature artist who does concept design, who does illustration, who does... those are the main ones, but you get the idea, I guess. So not all illustrators are going to be caricature artists. And if you're a caricature artist, you may definitely do more than just illustration. You may do live entertainment. You may do concept design. You may do private work for people, or fine art. So I hope that answers the question. That is a big question.
Well done. Are you ready for another one?
Sure.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
When coming across a female character with more masculine features, how do you go about finding the feminine elements? Or do you straight on emphasize the masculine aspects? That's from Alan.
Yeah, Alan, that's a good question, because it really varies from job to job. There may be some jobs where you have a subject who has maybe less feminine, more traditionally masculine features, where it doesn't matter so much. It's just supposed to be a funny, exaggerated drawing. It's for maybe a political illustration, and they probably want something that's really funny looking. And not saying a woman with masculine features is necessarily funny, but you can definitely not be afraid to go with your instinct in those cases. So let her rip. That's what I say. Just do what you think you want to do and see what the client says. But like I said, with my commission that I did recently, the woman did have a stronger jawline, I thought, and a stronger chin. And when I showed her the final artwork, she didn't care for it and wanted it more feminized, using her own words. So that's what I ended up doing. And it was just because of the requirements of that particular job. And honestly, I did tone it down a little bit. I could have made it more extreme and, a bigger, fatter jaw, But I don't generally do that. I don't go out of my way to do huge exaggerations when doing work for clients, unless they tell me, like, they're just a fan of my art and they want something really exaggerated in a style that I would want. Usually they're very hands-off and they say, do whatever you want. But this was like for, an illustration for a product or something that they wanted to post online, and they wanted it to represent their brand. So, naturally they should have control over how that looks. So you have to make the distinction and the judgment call on the spot, basically, for each new job. There's no one right answer. So I'm just adding a little shading now, a little cross-hatching to help define the forms a little bit. So it's pretty harsh, I think it's a pretty exaggerated face. But, pretty much captures her essence, I think. I could probably work on the details a little more, making it more her. And also getting a little bit more subtlety in the anatomy. There's not a lot of that indicated right now. I just treated it somewhat simply. She has sort of had a sour look on her face, which I think captures her sort of resting face. I could have chosen pictures of her smiling, and that would have made a different statement, and it would have forced me to draw a slightly different type of exaggeration. So just be aware of that too. What expression do you normally see this person make? What is their character, and what do you want to convey to the world about your opinion about the person? So that's what I wanted to say about her, is this look where she's a little bit severe looking, maybe judging you. I don't know. I don't know her psychology. It's just my own personal interpretation when I see her in the media. So that informed my decision. All right, let's go ahead and move on to another subject. Let's close these down here. Let's actually work on another First Lady here, Miss Michelle Obama. And these are two, obviously taken from the same photo shoot, probably the same photographer. Two different expressions, and her face changes quite a bit. If you look, her eyes on the left picture a lot bigger, her eyes on the right a lot smaller. The picture on the right, when she's smiling, she has kind of a crooked smile. And this is something I've noticed for quite a bit. Her lower smile, her lower lip always drags down further on one side than the other. In this case, I guess it's the right side. So we see more of her lower teeth on the right side. So just be aware of that. There's little asymmetries and how the person looks different when they make different expressions, and figure out which expression you want to caricature. And I don't know yet. I don't have a favorite one here. I kind of like both looks equally. So let me just go ahead and draw. I guess I'll draw the, I don't know if I'm going to call it the serious look, but, the one where her mouth is closed, and see what I can come up with there.
But I guess, too, when you said iconic, you kind of have to pick the photograph that you see them in the state that they usually are seen. Like, there are more photos, I feel, of Melania where she's not smiling than there are of Obama.
Yeah.
Ms. Obama.
Yeah, that's true. And then that just feeds into the public persona. If you don't see this person smile a lot, maybe they are a little more severe or more serious or whatever, then that's probably an accurate observation. Who knows what they're really like in private, but just the images we see in the media tend to reflect a certain, or show a certain type of character. And Michelle Obama did a little bit more smiling, I think, and a more casual presentation to the world. So that's what I tend to see when I look at her. Her eyes, to me, look fairly close together. So I'm going to maybe make them a little more close together than average to create that exaggeration. Good eyebrows. One's raised up a bit higher than the other, making this sort of quirky expression, like a curious look. She's hearing something that is piquing her interest. And remember, when one eyebrow is raised, it's going to actually lift the eyelid up a bit, or the eyelid fold, the eye cover fold, so for the eye on the right. And it may even open the eye a little bit more too, but I don't really see that happening. She's also wearing fairly heavy makeup, so she's got the eyelashes going and the eyeliner. When I'm doing these thumbnail sketches, I just try to keep the pencil just moving and try not to be too hesitant or scratchy. I want to get my thoughts out on the paper as fast as possible. And I do work a little more quickly when I'm not talking to the camera. Maybe a little more hesitant here. But it's important, I think, to let the stream of consciousness guide your decisions and not think too much about it. If you think too much about it, I think you'll get... you'll run into the roadblocks, or you'll start to overthink things, and it will hinder your progress. I think she has a fairly long philtrum in this photo. Her lips are pretty far down from her nose. Lower lip is a bit bigger than the upper lip and maybe jutting out a little bit more, kind of an underbite.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Cleto Reese was asking, what's more challenging to caricature, a female or a male face?
Well, that's kind of the point of today's whole topic, actually, that female faces tend to be a little harder for many people to caricature. And that may not be everybody's experience. I mean, if some of you out there, females who do caricature, what is your experience with it? Let us know. If you have personal feelings on it, maybe you think women are easier. Maybe because if you are a female, you don't have some of the same issues, creating distractions and roadblocks in your head as a male might when they're drawing a woman.
I think, too, that people are used to drawing people that look similar to what they look like. So even though I don't exaggerate a whole lot, I find myself more drawn to drawing female faces just because it's easier, because it's what I see when I look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's part of the psychology for you as well?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, this is not quite looking as much like her as I'd hoped. I think the exaggeration is pretty funny, but I don't quite see that potential for likeness in here just yet. I'm not necessarily sure if it's my concept that's flawed, like for the exaggeration, or just my execution of it. But yeah, it's not quite working, and that happens a lot. I usually don't share those drawings, but we're working live here. Yeah, not quite her. Let's go ahead and shut this one down, and let's start working from the smiling one. Maybe I'll have more luck with that. I think it's good just for you guys to see that, though, that, it's not... I rarely get a home run on the first pitch. I always have to do a couple before I start getting into the swing of things. I still do see that same kind of head shape, though, on this one, even though she has a totally different expression. I like that tall, narrow forehead and really wide cheeks, but very rounded, not quite like Melania. She has a very rounded face. Rounded features. Zoom out. Actually, let's shrink that down a little bit rather than zooming out.
So Chris Berry is asking, do you think you'll ever live stream a pet caricature?
Yeah, actually, I have done a live stream. I did a whole live stream a few months ago on pets, on drawing animals. So check that out. I'm not sure exactly when that was. It might have been June or
So that's
July.
on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel here. You can look back for that. If you want to see more of that, though, let me know. I mean, I'm happy to do it again. Drawing animals is pretty fun. Either caricatures or realistic. But, you know, I tend to do more caricatures of animals, so maybe that. But yeah, let me know if you'd like to see another animal live stream. But also look back in the history on my channel for the animal stream.
There was another question about a possible streaming topic. Let's see. And you may have covered this one in a past stream as well. It's from Herman Oliveira. How about combining two mediums like watercolors and inks in a caricature? Have you shown that? I feel like you have.
Yeah, I did that. I think the Zach Galifianakis one I did was inks mixed with watercolors, wasn't it? So yeah, just again, look back at my old streams. You can often tell from the thumbnail what it was I was doing. But and I'm sure I'll do it again. You know, because that's a great medium to work in is inks and watercolors. Oh, and the Ruth Bader Ginsburg I did just like 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago. Oh yeah, 2 weeks ago I started the Ruth Bader Ginsburg caricature in ink, and then I did the watercolor over the week. You know, just recorded a time lapse of it, and I showed it in the next week's live stream. Can't remember the topic I did last week though. But, you know, whichever one the last live stream was, check out that because I showed the watercoloring portion of the ink drawing. I'm trying to purposely keep the drawing here really small on the page so I don't get too distracted by details and just focus on the big picture. I think that really helps when you're doing thumbnail sketches to just keep them small so you can draw them quickly and not invest too much time in them. Definitely has large teeth, very big smile.
I have another question for you.
Sure.
Pocket Broken wants to know, is it difficult to make a living solely as being an artist? Do you feel you need a side hustle while you build a career?
Well, while you're building your career, definitely. I mean, if you've got something that's bringing in good income and art isn't yet, definitely hold on to that. But there's a point at which you got to sort of commit to one or the other. Otherwise, you just won't be able to put in the time necessary to develop your art. And, you know, really focus on doing longer studies, focusing on taking classes. That stuff is really important. But if you're busy raising a family and putting food on the table and working a full-time job, I can really sympathize. It's got to be very difficult. I was lucky that I got art training when I was fairly young, living with roommates, and I didn't have high rent, no family to feed. So that's the ideal situation. But if you already are working in the arts, you know, I found this out definitely during the pandemic, but I've known it for a while since, you know, I was a freelancer starting in like 2000. It's good to be diversified in art, not just doing one thing or the other, because if my whole income was based solely on doing live events and parties, you know, the pandemic canceled all that. So I had to I already had part of my business was doing studio work and stuff remotely over the computer. And that took more prominence, but luckily I had experience in it. I'd already, you know, I had a whole history of learning to paint and doing illustrations that I could charge a little bit more for, rather than doing just quick sketch caricatures. If I was just a quick sketch caricature performer in this environment, in this world, I don't know what I'd be doing now if that was my only way of earning a living. You know, there's the Proco course I have too. I did some teaching, created that generates some income every month as well from people who sign up for the premium course. So, I had a few different options there, and money coming in from different angles and from different, I don't know if I'd call them side hustles, because they're all my main hustles. But if you mean a side hustle like, driving for Uber or something, yeah, I mean, that may be something you might want to hold on to. Or if you have an office job or something where you're working for somebody else and it's relatively stable, I would, just try to work hard and do both. Boy, she is providing a lot of heartache here for me. This is not, it's okay, it's close, but I'm definitely not happy with this just yet. It's not Michelle Obama. I don't quite see the potential yet. I mean, maybe it's a matter of just tweaking things a little bit, maybe changing the jawline, changing the chin a bit. It's definitely a work in progress here. Yeah, there are elements of it that, are reminiscent of Ms. Obama, but it's definitely not there yet. It's not ready to go to the next stage. Let me try one more time. I'm going to go ahead and shrink this one down just to be a reminder of my failure. Let's see. Jack asks, what's your least favorite aspect about drawing caricatures? Yeah, that's an interesting question.
I didn't know if you wanted to answer that.
Yeah, any questions? Well, when I don't get the likeness right away, I hate that, and sometimes it's just a matter of getting the right photo or being in the right frame of mind. But yeah, I mean, it's just, we all run into these spots where we find ourselves having a hard time capturing the particular subject in front of us. And the challenge then is to not repeat the same mistakes over and over. Like, here I am drawing a similar face shape again, but it's just what I see. And I think it's not a problem with my concept or the idea of the exaggeration. It's just a matter of execution. It's a matter of what lines I actually am drawing that's not quite working, or the shapes or the relationships between the features. So when it's not working out, that's the difficult aspect of doing caricatures. And there's nothing that's, there's no aspect really that's my least favorite about the job. I mean, sometimes, you get clients that, want the sun and the moon and the sky and don't have a huge budget, and then, you never hear back from them and you wasted time, negotiating with them and talking about their project, and then, it never comes to pass. And you sort of develop an instinct of like, you start to notice red flags in certain clients with the way they talk, the way they ask things. So I try not to spend too much time working with people that I don't think the job's going to work out. But then sometimes I get surprised.
Sorry, one thing I always notice, if someone says, oh, this will take you no time at all to do, that's usually a red flag.
Yeah,
that
whenever
means they don't want to pay.
Yeah, when they're trying to sell you on the idea of how fast the job will be for you to do, they don't know how you work. They don't know you. It's very insulting when a client, deigns to tell you exactly how long it's going to take, and it's nothing, and diminishing your skill and diminishing your effort that you're going to put into it. Yeah, red flag. Stay away from them. They don't know what they're talking about, and they're often it's going to be a long job, and they won't want to pay a lot. Because they don't value your time if they think you could just whip something out. But also remember, it's not just about the time you spend on something that is how you price it. It's all the years that go into the process of learning how to do caricatures. And they're not paying for the hour or two it takes you to do it. They're paying for an hour plus the 20 years under your belt. So, if you charged a tiny amount for a certain type of caricature back when you started, you definitely should be charging more 20 years later if you're still doing it, because you gained a lot of experience and wisdom, and that's what they're paying for.
But what if the market is dictating the prices? Like right now we're in a pandemic. There are a lot of people that have actually lowered their prices.
Well, if that's the case, I mean, you got to offer a product. If you want to offer a product for a lower price point, you can't spend the time doing the type of work maybe you wanted to do in the first place that you wanted to charge a lot for. You have to find a quicker way of doing things. So they're not going to get your best work if they're not going to pay top dollar, because your time is valuable. Although you wouldn't know it from this drawing. Yeah, this does not look like Michelle Obama at all. So I'm going to have to come back to her, I think. I'm going to circle back around. I don't know if I'm going to do it in this stream, but I think I'm going to hang it up for right now because that one's just not working out. And I want to draw some different face types. Let's see here. We've got... So let's do another really difficult subject that I've had trouble drawing in the past.
Another first lady?
No. Natalie Portman. Sort of your typical Hollywood beauty. Well, I don't want to say, I don't want to diminish her and say it's typical, but yeah, she's
beauty.
She's just, has a very symmetrical face. She has very attractive features, and people might worry about how to draw her in a caricature. So with someone like her, again, it's all about the right angle and the right expression. Like I like this angle here, this 3/4 view. This front view is okay. It shows some of her personality and her big smile and her head shape. But her head shape is also hidden by her hair. It's a little bit more revealed here, because her hair is pulled back. But look at this. I found this great photo of her from the movie V for Vendetta where she had her head shaved. So you can really see her head shape here. You can see how wide her cranium is compared to her jawline. Now her jawline is very square, but it's very, very small. She has a very childlike chin and jawline. Very large cranial mass, sort of like a young child. So this head shape, is because it's visible, is very helpful. I'm not going to draw this. I'm not going to draw that look, that angle, or that hairstyle. I'm going to draw her from here. But again, this view of her face is going to help me in my decision-making process when I create the initial head shape design.
So I do have a question for you, just a quick one from Daniel Gloon. Are you going to do any coloring today, or is it pretty much just black and white sketches?
Yeah, no color today. I'm just going to sketch. Today's just about figuring out exaggerations, thumbnail sketching, rough sketching, and overcoming the difficulties in the design process when caricaturing females. So I don't plan, I've got a lot, I'd rather just do a lot of quantity rather than focusing on any one particular subject. Because I think that's going to be most helpful when tackling a subject like this. So if you wanted to see color painting today, sorry. Maybe next week.
Well, there are lots of videos, though, on your YouTube channel that have coloring.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to do very small but squared off jawline. Huge cranium. Ears are sort of big but low set on the head. And she's got her hair pulled back in a bit of a bun back here. And a bit of her neck. Very long, very thin neck. Let's figure out the face here. I'd say her eyes appear fairly small on her head, which sets her apart from childlike proportions. Children tend to have very large eyes on their head, and a lot of celebrity females, young female types, will have larger eyes, but not Natalie Portman here, I think. So which is a nice relief too, because it's, it can be kind of cliched sometimes to draw the childlike features on a female. It's always good when you can break that stereotype. And they're angled too. They got sort of an elf-like look, a bit of a slant to them. Especially when she smiles, they get pushed up laterally on the outer edges. And I would say a pretty long nose, not overly long or large, but not as petite a nose as some other females may have. So I'm just always thinking about how this subject differs from the average, or what, the expected stereotype might be. I'll just clean up my sketch a little bit as I go here. Very unique nose shape too. The planes of the nose are fairly visible, which is good. When a nose has no visible plane changes, it makes it a lot harder to draw. And distinctive shapes to her eyebrows. Even when in a relaxed position, they have sort of an S curve, where they go up, then down, and then back up again. They're fairly wide eyebrows.
I have another question for you. This one's from returnee Antonio Blanco. Are you ready for it?
Yep.
Court, how is a normal day in the life of a caricature artist? How much time do you spend working and practicing?
Well, there is no normal anymore. Every day is, well, every day is kind of the same in a certain respect, but every day is, I don't know, it's just not like it used to be. Because we're not doing gigs anymore. So that would actually be a little more predictable. So I don't know, just these days I'm just working on commissions. I'm working on ideas for YouTube videos. I'm working on a new course, a long-term project. So I do a little bit of, I try to do a little bit of all those things each day. So, it keeps it more interesting. Where I'll spend an hour or two on working on the class or a couple hours working on a client project. And maybe sometimes just relaxing too. You can't just work all the time. I try to exercise at least once a day too, just like an hour where I'm going out bike riding or hiking around the neighborhood. Got to stay fit and active because we're not generally going out as much as we used to. So you got to really make an effort to get your steps in.
Shout out to Greg Dolan. Welcome, Greg.
Oh, it's Greggy here. All right. The King of Sting, everybody. He's in the house. If you don't know what the King of Sting is, Google it.
Not safe for work.
Yeah, not safe for work or your family. Do not watch it around other people. Sorry, Greg, I had to tell everybody.
So you kind of told the life during the pandemic. What were things like before the pandemic for you as a caricature artist? Do you remember? Way back when?
Seems like a lifetime ago. Half the time would be spent preparing for events and gigs and traveling, and we'd have our slow times, of course, where we wouldn't be doing as many gigs. But life hasn't changed a whole lot for Debbie and I here in the house. I mean, we spent even before the pandemic spent most of our time just working from home, doing just working on our projects. Debbie does her magazine layouts and client work, and I just I always have at least one commission, it seems, going on, whether it's a big one or a small one. It's not that exciting to talk about, really.
So how are you liking this sketch? Feeling better about this one?
A little bit. It's funky. It's not awesome. Definitely needs some work here. I'm just trying to refine the face shape a little bit more. I think she has a pretty pronounced chin, even though it's small. It juts out a little bit. It's demanding some attention. It's like, look at me, I'm a chin. But overall, it's a small chin in comparison with the rest of the head. But it's definitely not a receding chin. It definitely has a firm, bony structure to it. Let's shrink her down a little bit. Ooh. Well, that's some Latin words there. Accidentally hit the text tool. There we go. Yeah, I'm spending too long on this one and it's not working out. That's the thing about these thumbnail sketches. If you spend too long on them, you tend to want to work longer on them because you've already invested so much time. You don't want to give up on it. But it's important to realize when it's a lost cause and just take your lessons from it to help inform the next attempt. So maybe on the next one, I'll try a different approach. I still like working from this photo. I think it's a good idea. It's a good photo to work from. But I don't know, I'm just going to try to draw in a more stream of consciousness sort of way and not think about it so much. Like maybe we can start with the eyes here. I mean, I usually don't have very good luck when drawing from the eyes first. I don't. Because my whole thing is I draw the big shapes first, and then worry about the details as I go. So, but when I do have trouble with a face, I tend to try to switch up my method so that it's I'm not repeating the same kind of habits over and over again. And if I have problems with doing the lines, maybe I'll try a digital paint sketch where I'll paint with shapes rather than with lines.
So Pocket Broken was asking if he can or she can see your portfolio of work you submitted for your art training. They're trying to build a portfolio for art college and want to see what kind of guideline they should go after. Did you have to submit a portfolio for art school?
No, I mean, I went to college, just a regular college after high school, and there was no portfolio requirements. And after college, I went to the Watts Atelier, and there was no portfolio requirements for that. They just wanted students. So I never had to do that. So I couldn't really help you on that. I don't know what the procedure is when colleges are looking for your portfolios. I think that's a weird thing. I don't know why they would actually want to see your portfolio. Because, like, do they want artists that are already good? Or do they want artists that are not good and don't know what they're doing because they need the most help? You know, what are they looking for? Because if you ask me, I mean, anyone that wants to apply and wants to go should be able to, regardless of what their portfolio is doing or what's in their portfolio.
Yeah, I had the same experience. I went to a college, I applied for a scholarship. When I went for the interview, I brought my art portfolio, and they did not even look at it. So, yeah, Court and I are not the best people to ask, I guess, in that aspect.
Yeah, I remember, like, reading stories about back in the day, you know, the academy, you know, in France, the official state academy, the Beaux-Arts, they would, you know, you'd have to have a really, really strong portfolio, and you would study at an atelier first to train to create a portfolio for entrance into the academy. But I think the academy was more also to just get a name and a reputation and get the connections you need to be a working artist to get commissions, you know, when you graduate. It was a lot harder if you were not known for entering the academy. So, I mean, the reasons for joining, you know, going to a school that requires a portfolio have changed over the years, I think. So I don't think it's like that anymore, really. No one's ever even asked to ever see my diploma. You know, I have an art degree. No one ever asks to see it. It's just what you can do for them, you know, what your style is, how good you are at solving problems and meeting deadlines. Well, that's what clients want to know. Any school that gives you good training should be on your roster for, like, you know, a choice for schools. Like, if it's really snooty and snobby and very, you know, if they're looking for a particular look in the portfolio, like, then you're just playing their game of what it is you think that they want to see rather than just putting your best foot forward. So it sounds like it could be a little bit tricky to navigate in some school like that where you're just trying to enter by a portfolio competition. So I don't know. Again, I don't have good advice on that. Those are just some of my thoughts.
So Daniel Gloon is asking, if you don't find the similarity of the person you draw, are you going to give up or just try to keep drawing them?
Well, it depends. For today, I just want to get through a lot of faces to show you guys. And if I keep on not getting good results, yeah, I'm going to give up and move to the next one. But if it's a real job for a client, you can't give up. You have to finish it. You have to do it and deliver the product. You have to figure it out. So you may spend days and days trying to work on this same face over and over again. And that's one of the reasons I developed my all my different lessons for my caricature course. Was those are just my different ways of figuring out ways around problems. Like if I had a problem with a certain type of face or a certain subject matter, I would have to develop new ways of approaching it. So I created techniques for myself, like opposition sketching, where you look at your subject in the photo reference next to another person, and seeing the differences between their two faces in the photos can actually help give you better ideas about what to do for your main subject. So, things like that, or doing animal sketching, like spirit animal sketching, or doing shape designs, like paint sketching with large brushes rather than with lines. That was another thing I developed. So, yeah, they were all processes, they were all techniques to help me get over my own hurdles because I had to deliver a job by a certain deadline. So, just depends on what you're doing, if you give up or not, how invested you are in the subject. This one looks a little more like her, I think. The structure's really bad. I mean, it's a thumbnail sketch. I would fix it in the next stages. But yeah, this is not, it's a really funky looking face. Maybe I can move it out a little bit with the lasso tool. I think this eye's a little too close, I think. Yeah, I don't know if that helps.
I don't know. Maybe it's time to move on to the next one.
Maybe.
Should have watched the time to see how long you're spending. I haven't been paying attention.
Yeah. So anyway, it does show how I would approach certain things, and also the stuff I'm talking about I think can be really helpful, even if the sketches aren't really awesome. The concepts are still sound, I think. Let's see. Let's do someone maybe a different character type altogether. There's this actress from SNL, Adie Bryant, who's just hilarious. And I found some really good photos of her. And one of her with Mark Wahlberg for some reason. Maybe they were in a movie together. I don't know. But actually having him in here does help show the differences between their two facial types. And it gives me ideas about how to exaggerate her. So that's something I always like to leave if I do see another person in the photo with her, with my main subject. But you know what? I'm looking at it and I can close it down just because I really want to focus on her and I have limited space here.
Her. What's her name?
Adie Bryant.
She's on Saturday Night Live.
Yep.
But I don't know her name.
All right. But definitely, a wider face type, a little heavier on the lower side of the face. And I'm going to just try to be bold and fun and not, again, worry about perceptions or, worried about what, if I was drawing it for her, what she might say. That kind of stuff just gets in your head and keeps you from being able to fully explore the idea of the exaggeration. I'll get the curvature of the head or the angle of the head in there. Yeah, sort of downward slanting eyes. Well, at least on the upper lids, downward slanting.
So another question from Nad. What inspired you to specialize in caricature?
What inspired me? I don't know. I kind of fell into it. I didn't really plan on it, actually. I played around with caricatures in high school. I was in an advanced placement art class, and they asked you to do a focus for your portfolio for the final grade, and I chose caricature for some reason. I don't know why. I didn't have like a premonition of the future. I didn't plan on doing caricatures professionally. They appealed to me for some reason. But then after that, I had really, again, didn't really focus on it. I went to college, just figured, I don't know, maybe I'll be a fine artist, maybe I'll be an illustrator of some kind. I did not know. Right after college ended and I was looking for a job, there was a local theme park that was hiring and I didn't know what kind of art it was. It turned out to be caricature. I found out when I called them and, what kind of artwork do I bring in my portfolio? And they did want to see a portfolio, but it didn't really matter too much. They wanted to meet you and figure out if you had a good personality or not, because they know they can train you to do caricatures. If you can hold a pencil, you can be trained to do caricatures. They just wanted good, outgoing people. And I just interviewed and got the job and had one night of training before starting work in the theme park. And
one night?
Yeah, like most of the artists get like 2 weeks of training.
Yeah.
I just was hired in the off season and they didn't run the training program. They just needed a few people for the winter. And I was one of the few people that got hired for the winter season. And yeah, they kind of just threw us into the park and I was not good at all. It was terrible. Had to learn just kind of by watching other people. There was a lot of clients or customers that I just skipped and said, why don't you sit down for this guy? He'll draw you. And then I just watched them draw and learn from the people around me. And then I got the hang of it. But I hated it for months and months. I didn't really like it because I wasn't good at it and I knew it and I didn't like the sales aspect of it. I wasn't making much money. My costs weren't that high at that time, but still, I was like, I don't know how much longer I'm going to last. But I ended up, figuring it out and ended up being pretty good eventually. I got some good experience watching some other really good people, and then started getting hired for private events. And I'm like, oh, you can actually make some decent money at this.
So how long did you draw for theme parks?
I worked for the theme park system for like 5 years, working for Commons Art Shops, and they're the concessionaire company that does caricatures and portraits all over the country.
And they still are around.
Yeah, they're definitely. There's only a few main companies doing them, spread out in parks around the country. There's, Commons. There's Tom Richmond's company. There's Keelan's company.
Mm-hmm. Goofy Faces.
Yeah, Goofy Faces. And is Arts still in operation?
Sure.
I'm not sure if they're still operating. Because I'm not really connected to the theme park world so much anymore. But Commons was like the king. They had like most of the theme parks in the country when I was working for them. Don't know if that's still the same.
So are you liking this one better?
Yeah, a little better. It's really rough, and it's more about the potential for the likeness that you see. It's not necessarily going to be a great sketch right out of the gate. That's how I treat my sketches. You guys at home may want to do your caricature sketches a little differently. Maybe you want the very first sketch to be the one you focus most on. Maybe it'll be a thumbnail sketch that evolves into a rough and a final without any like multiple steps in between, and that's okay. This is just my particular workflow. I tend to draw really quickly and sloppy on the first go around.
This is sloppy?
Kinda.
For you, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I don't focus so much on anatomy and perspective and symmetry and structure on the stage. I'm just trying to let the pen flow and let the ideas come out of me naturally. Because I found that I work better when I'm in a certain mental zone, and it often takes many sketches to work up to that, to get to that state of concentration and meditation where you can just sort of draw, and it just seems to happen naturally without even thinking about it.
The zone.
Yeah. But anyway, I wanted to show on this one how you can take a person with a heavier facial type, heavier body type, and just go for it. You don't have to worry about dealing with people with kid gloves. You don't have to particularly please anyone with your artwork. Just please yourself. Try to make a good, funny sketch and a good likeness.
Are you ready for another question?
Sure.
Ellen's asking, when you started doing caricature, did you ever have times where traditional portrait training made you feel inhibited in exploring exaggerations?
I worried about that, but I don't think it's really an issue. I think my traditional art training helps personally. It maybe has given me the perspective that I like to see. I like to see caricatures with a really strong sense of anatomy, perspective, realism, believability, and that's the training that I think that is the portrait training talking, because I have maybe a more discerning eye in my own work for what my own standards are. And I appreciate it when other artists can achieve that as well in their work, like where it looks like it could be a three-dimensional character in real life because it's so well drawn. But then I also do really admire flat graphic caricatures too. I appreciate them for what they are. Like Maria Picasso Piquet's artwork is very graphic and abstract because that's her thing. And the likenesses are amazing.
She's so good.
Yeah. I honestly call what she does achieving a likeness. She achieves recognizability. You can tell instantly who it is, even though it's just made out of like squares and triangles and circles. And that's a thing to remember in caricature too, is you don't necessarily need to always achieve a likeness. If your style is more abstract, you can just go for recognizability, if that makes sense.
Ooh. I've never heard those two topics compared before.
Yeah, I think maybe Tom Richmond mentions the idea
probably
in his book. I don't know if he addresses it the same way I do, but
I'll have to go look in the book.
Yeah, I think
the Bible.
Yeah, like because a caricature of a really famous person or an iconic figure like Austin Powers, all you have to do is like a swoosh of the hair and glasses, and it'll be recognizable, but there won't be a likeness. It's not like something you can point to and say, oh yeah, that's definitely a likeness of Austin Powers, but I know who it's supposed to be. That means it's achieved recognizability. I try to achieve both. I think trying to get a recognizable drawing, highly recognizable, strong likeness based on good anatomy and good drawing. So let's see, let's draw Miss Pelosi here. I really like this expression down here in the yellow. It's very active, and I like her pointing too. I don't know how much I'll get into with this though. But let's try a very, her face, she's a little older of a person, so you can see more of the sunken in cheeks, jowls, separation between the forms. So she's going to be a little easier to caricature than, say, a young Hollywood starlet. At least I think she might be. I've drawn her a couple times, or sketched her a couple times. But she definitely has more, ammunition. It provides more ammunition to the artist when you're looking at a face like this.
She looks really good, though, for her age.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I can't remember, but she's getting up there in years.
Yeah. But very, very heavy lids, very sunken in eyes underneath the orbits of the eyes. The eye sockets of the skull are really prominent. Someone like her, though, definitely the details really do matter, and I won't have time to really go into all the details of the creases on the face and the details of the anatomy. But I just want to get the main concept down because we're running pretty low on time, and I still have one more person, maybe even two, that I want to do, but I don't think I'm going to get to them.
Maybe I should cut you off when you spent 5 minutes on her. How's that?
Maybe.
You got 3 more minutes. No pressure.
Very loosey-goosey here, just trying to get through the thumbnail sketch as fast as I can while capturing the essential character. I see her lower teeth, but I don't see her upper teeth. And the way this expression she's making, I can tell what muscles she's contracting to make this expression. She's, it's mostly the levator labia, depressor, labia inferioris, and labial platysma.
Blah, 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 blah.
If you care to know the muscles. I guess Debbie doesn't. It's kind of ran out of room for her hair here, so let's shrink her face down a bit.
You got 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
According to my clock. Are there any Riley method teaching books that you recommend? Beto is asking.
No, there's no good books on Riley that I've ever seen.
Seriously?
No, it's just crazy. It's such a popular subject that people have a high demand for, but I've never seen a good one.
Is it a copyrighted procedure?
No, not at all.
Then maybe you should do a book.
Yeah, I don't think I'm the guy to do that. There's been a few attempts, but there's always something wrong with them. There might be decent drawings, but the text is bad, or there might be, good text, but the drawings are uninspiring and don't really look very good.
We should change that.
Yeah.
We could do.
You'll probably find more information about it on, online on YouTube channels. People of the Watts School, all of us were trained in the Riley method, so a lot of former students will have videos on that. There's this guy Brandwin Jones. I have a video on it in my caricature course. Actually, I go into quite a bit of detail in the premium version of the course, where it's a whole lesson on the Riley abstraction and what it's based on and how to construct it. And you get downloadable ebooks with the diagrams of the Riley abstraction. So that's an option if you want to keep that in mind, the premium version of my caricature course. But it is the Riley abstraction as it relates to caricature, not as it relates to portraiture, even though the concepts do cross over.
Are you almost done?
Almost done. She's got her scarf on. And this is like a spooky Halloween drawing right now.
Yeah, somebody mentioned Skeletor, but
I mean, I would be going a little bit faster and accurately probably if I wasn't talking so much. But it's more interesting when I talk, so. This one, actually, there's good potential in this one. I like how this one's coming along, even though it's very, very rough and very sloppy. I would probably, maybe next week I'll develop one of these into a more finished caricature, just because I would like to see at least one of these through, the female caricatures, because I do need more female caricatures in my portfolio.
Maybe you could post the thumbnails and have people vote.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that on my Facebook or Instagram or something. Okay, we got probably just time for one more. Who would you say, Zooey Deschanel or Amanda Seyfried?
Ooh, well, personally, I like big-eyed Amanda Seyfried. And you haven't really done any big-eyed.
Well, Zooey Deschanel is big-eyed as well.
Is she?
Yeah. Well, I'll do Amanda Seyfried. And, she's actually a good choice, too, because this weekend is Mean Girls weekend. Or yesterday was Mean Girls Day. It's like a holiday for people that like the movie Mean Girls.
I love that movie, but why is it a holiday? Is it mentioned in the movie?
Yeah, there's just like one mention of a date. I think the guy asks Lindsay Lohan what the date is or something. And she says October 3rd. And so we know fans of the movie who like to celebrate Mean Girls Day. Anyway, so yeah, I found a few photos of Amanda here. Amanda Seyfried, I'm not sure how to say her name. But she's one of those people that looks very different from photo to photo. Like, I found several photos of her that did not look like her at all. And I'm like, is that Amanda? So I think I'm going to draw from one of these 3/4 view images. Here's like this big photo of her, which is good. But you can see the thing that I noticed about her, aside from her eyes being large, they're very, very widely set. Very widely spaced eyes. So that's going to play into my exaggeration. So she's definitely an atypical Hollywood type. She's a little more distinctive looking, which makes her a good subject for caricature. But she still does have, very young, pretty, ideal features as well. But it's mixed with this really eye arrangement situation. So I'm not sure if I like this one best, because that's from actually the movie Mean Girls. This one's a slightly better photo, I think, on the right. But yeah, I'll start with the one on the left because I tend to be drawn to that one a little bit more. All right, so I think her whole head shape is going to be dominated or determined by the eyes. So I'm really going to try to exaggerate on this one and have a lot of fun with it, and really play up the wide eyes. Maybe even go a little bit froggy, with the eyes protruding from the skull a little. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work. Taking a risk. I think they made fun of her a bit in the Ted 2 movie, the Seth MacFarlane movie, where they made constant jokes about her looking like Gollum. I read an article about it, though. She was all on board. She found it very humorous, so she wasn't offended or anything.
So is that her spirit animal?
Yeah, her spirit animal would probably be Gollum.
So running towards the end, I'm going to try to squeeze in some questions.
Okay.
You can still draw, right?
Yep.
Okay, Ukinam has a question. What held you back as an artist when you were just starting?
What held me back as an artist when I was just starting?
I mean, I can answer for me.
Yeah, Debbie, why don't you answer?
Well, I know I didn't have any confidence whatsoever. And I think that's with any skill. You kind of have to practice and get your footing and just getting used to doing what you're doing to really gain that confidence. So for me, it's just practice as much as you can, become as confident as you can. And the only way to do that is to keep practicing.
And, there are different stages of my artistic development, stages where I didn't know I wanted to do, things that I did want to do. I would say when I first had some real direction and realized I wanted to be like Kruger, when I first discovered Kruger, the thing that held me back was just not having the traditional art training that I needed to pull it off. Because, he got traditional academic, whatever, training in Europe and knew how to paint, knew how to draw, and was a good draftsman already. And I was not. I did not know how to work with paint. And I would try to do these Kruger-esque paintings with just disastrous results. And that was long before it was just right after I started at the theme parks, and I had only done really caricatures, like quick sketch style, and I had not done any atelier training, drawing from life really. That was just not something I did. I didn't have a good procedure for drawing, or to how to deconstruct something and understand it from a fundamental structural level, and how to fix something that was bad. And I didn't get that until I got my atelier training. So training held me back, or lack thereof held me back in my caricature training, or held me back in my caricature explorations. This one definitely wins the award for, I think, most exaggerated today, or more funniest. I do like the way it's turning out. The likeness is, again, it's all about potential at this stage. But I do like the direction that the exaggeration is taking.
Speaking of exaggeration, do you have time for one more question?
Yes.
Maybe two. Subodh asks, does extremely exaggerated caricature ever follow the Riley abstraction?
It can. It doesn't have to. I personally do often do Riley abstractions on top of all my caricatures, especially if I don't have confidence in their in how well they're constructed. I'll usually flip the drawing in reverse and look at it backwards to see really what stands out about it that's not solid, that's misaligned, unintentional distortions, and then I'll do the Riley abstraction while it's in reverse. Yeah, so it definitely plays a big part for me, but that's just my personal style. That's what I like to see. Other artists who are very successful, who do great drawings, probably never did a Riley study or Riley sketch at all, and they turn out great. So it's not a magical secret to success or anything, but it just helps me personally when I have difficulties in my own drawings. If you know how to use it and you use it well, it can definitely give a little bit more three-dimensional credence to your drawing, a little bit more correct perspective.
Do we have time for one more?
Question or drawing?
Mm-hmm. One more question.
Yeah, we'll talk
This is your last drawing?
This is my last
right?
drawing, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't get to Zoe Deschanel, but she's big-eyed just like her, but different.
So Cleto Reese is asking, what art would you be doing if you weren't doing caricatures? Say caricatures did not exist.
Yeah.
What would you be doing instead? Art-wise.
Yeah, art-wise, I love portraiture. That's related to caricature because it's people still, but I love portrait painting. It's really, really difficult. Maybe, I think it's more difficult than caricatures, honestly, because it's the tolerances for failure are so strict. You really have to be within a narrow range of accuracy to make a good portrait. Even though some caricature is involved in portraiture, it's not that forgiving as caricature. Like, you can't just say, "Oh, it's my artistic expression to make your eyes, 7 inches apart." You can't. That doesn't fly in portraiture. But I love landscape painting. I just love going out to landscape and painting what's out there. I love looking at good landscape art. Just fine art in general. I love still lifes too. So basically fine art in general, I guess, would be my answer, not just portraiture. And that's probably what and I do that in my spare time when I'm not doing stuff for clients. I am out there painting the scenery and participating in group shows and leading outdoor exhibitions of local artists. Not exhibitions, expeditions. In San Diego and Southern California in general is a great place to paint the landscape. There's just a lot of different, widely varied environments around the state. Yeah. So here's my weird alien Amanda Seyfried. Yeah, again, likeness is maybe not 100%. In fact, I know it's not. But I think it's funny. And I could definitely work on it to make it a little bit more accurate with the likeness. But, every time you do a really extreme exaggerations, you really run the risk of losing the likeness. But that's the game you play in caricature. It's not for the timid. Anyway, so yeah, that's about it. About 1:30 here. Any last-minute questions that I didn't get to?
There's some, but I think probably you can answer those in the chat.
Yeah.
There was a request. Cleto wants to see you do a landscape piece live.
Well, that'd be a trick to do a live landscape painting outdoors, but maybe you mean indoors from a photo.
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I don't know if I could get all my gear out with the connection. I don't know. We could maybe think about it. It's something I might want to just record and show. I don't think I've done any recordings of my landscape paintings.
Yeah, you should do that. Some of your plein air paintings.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Yeah, so anyway, I hope that helps you guys figuring out when confronted with, a female subject, especially young, attractive types, what to do in caricature. Just don't let your inner voices, in the client's voices and society's voices, tell you what you think you should draw. Just go with your gut and sketch them over and over again. Try to find the right photo reference that shows them from a good angle that really, really looks like them in the photo. Because there are a lot of photos you can find of certain women that don't look like what you remember them looking like. Try to find the most iconic versions of that subject to draw from, just to make it easier on yourself. So that's my advice on that. If there's any other questions that we skipped in the chat, I apologize. You can leave them in the comments below, because it's kind of hard to go back through the chat to look through all those to find those questions. But let me know in the comments. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, so you can get notifications about my next streams. And that's it for now. Thank you, Debbie, for all your help again this week. And we will see you hopefully next week. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.